Welcome to Wild Side, your wild true crime podcast.
We're your hosts, who are sisters, storytellers, and truth seekers.
I'm Bailey, a therapist who is fascinated by all weird and dark human behaviors.
And I'm Chelsea, an educator here to unearth the facts behind the cases.
We cover true crime because some cases are just too dark to forget,
and others are too wild to ignore.
We're so glad you're here, so buckle up
and enjoy the ride.
It's a Wednesday.
It's my favorite day of the week. I surely hope that it is your favorite day of the week as well.
Favorite. No
regrets.
No regrets.
No regrets.
Well, we are going to try to jump into this real quick. One thing that I wanted to just bring up before we dive in is we had a really nice comment in our Spotify app. And I'm not going to call this listener by her name because I don't know if she would want that.
Sure.
But we just had a listener kind of say something along the lines of like, hey, it seems like this is a little bit more scripted than it used to be. It's not as fun as it was, like the podcast. And I was just like, totally get it. And one of the things that I wanted to say in regard to that, because we did start off, if you guys have listened to us from the beginning, the first year was very like fun and definitely more lighthearted. But what changed that is we had 2 or 3 family members of victims in cases that we covered reach out to us. And we talked to them, and a couple of them, 1 or 2 of them were just like, yeah, I mean, it wasn't my favorite how you guys presented it with like the laughy, lighthearted. And Chelsea and I were just like, we never want to feel like this ever again in our life. And so that really is 100% behind why we changed our style into a much more serious. And then that's why we also added the short sides. So to try to do like non-violent crime. So we could be definitely like more lighthearted and more jokey and more fun. And it's really 100% around keeping the respect for the victims.
Yeah, it's such a hard balance. Bailey and I, we have a tendency to find things funny when it's not funny, right? And it's not that we find whatever the big thing is or the dramatic thing is or traumatic thing is funny, but maybe it's just the way it was worded or silly things like that just kind of come across us as being funny. And we're really trying again to be respectful, or we kind of are laughing at each other. And we've had family members of victims that were like, it just seemed a little insensitive. And we're like, oh gosh, we weren't laughing at you. We weren't laughing at the victim. So yeah, guys, I don't know. I just think that ethically, we need to stay truer to being respectful. And we hope that you guys understand that.
Yeah. And the last thing is on that kind of in that same vein, as far as it being scripted. So I think it depends on your definition of scripted. Like our whole conversation is not scripted as far as like whenever we go off script to go back and forth about a thought that we have, but the whole case is 100% pre-written. And if it kind of sounds like we read off of it, we 100% do, because I know that I can't wing words on the fly like that. I can't. We try to make it to sound as natural as we can, but I think if you tried to do it, you would be really surprised at how difficult it is.
And I don't know, spoiler, it's always been scripted. From day one, we've always written up cases. We've always researched them. We've always written them. So yeah, I don't know. Again, everybody has their things, but I don't know who would not be scripted if you're covering something like true crime. Like you have to have a case, you have to have facts. And I don't know about you guys, but I can't have, a brand new case each week with all of the intricate details stored in my short-term mem. I don't have enough bandwidth for that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, now that that horse is good and dead, I think we can I think we can move on. So this week we are diving into the case of Martin McNally, and this is the gentleman that we interviewed, and so we tried to bring in a lot of different pieces in this case, and I got a lot of the information from an awesome podcast that was done on this in 2020, and we're going to link it in the show notes, and it's literally called American Skyjacker, and I got a lot of information from there, and so just buckle up buttercups, because it's going to be a wild ride. So without further ado, here we go. A Boeing 727 cuts through the clouds at 3 a.m. The cabin is empty, the passengers are all gone, and the only people left on board are the crew and a man with a shaggy brown wig standing in the rear of the plane, staring into the pure black sky. A canvas mailbag stuffed with $500,000 is tied to his belt. He has never jumped out of an airplane before. He has read about terminal velocity only in a library book. He knows that if he pulls the ripcord too early, the parachute could shred. If he pulls it too late, he'll hit the ground going 100 miles an hour. He takes off the wig, throws it into the night, and he follows it.
so I'm sure if you've been in America, you've heard of things like the industrial era or, the flapper era. But did we know that there was actually a name for that the newspaper called the Golden Age of Hijacking? That is wild. And why did we have that? Because plane hijacks or hijacking, were so common in the late 60s and 70s that the newspaper and the media had to come up with a name for it, which is wild to me. I had no idea that that was a thing.
Yeah, it was a thing, the Golden Age of Hijacking, and we're right in the middle of it with this case. And sitting right in the middle of that is our guy, Martin J. McNally. And at that time, a 28-year-old ex-Navy airplane electrician, petty criminal, and full-blown D.B. Cooper fanboy. We actually got to talk to Martin, which he goes by Mac, and he told us very plainly that he was fascinated with D.B. Cooper, and that's where it kind of all starts. Cooper was proof that you could beat the system. You could hijack a jet, get the cash, and jump into the night and vanish.
Martin wasn't the only one watching. So let's rewind just a little bit because, again, guys, you know me and I love the history aspect of it. So the first recorded plane hijacking on record dates back to 1930. Revolutionaries in Peru forced a pilot to fly them out of the country. But for decades, at least in the United States, hijacking really was basically unheard of. From the 1930s, when that first one happened, that was only in Peru. The U.S. didn't have any. From 1961 to about 1967, there were only a handful of incidences, and then 1969 hits. And I don't know what it was about the late 60s, but things got wild. And suddenly, you've got dozens of hijackings that are happening frequently. In a few short years, over 130 hijackings happened in the American skies. Most of them are people demanding to be flown to Cuba, treating the plane kind of like an Uber with wings. And here's the wildest part. Airports are totally casual. And I don't know if you guys remember this. I actually remember this. So fun fact, Bailey and I, our mom was, she worked for American Airlines. She worked there at the airport. But we remember the days before TSA. We remember when you could walk up to the gates. No metal detectors, no IDs were required. Again, you could buy a ticket at the counter. You could walk up to the gate. You could stroll onto the plane with your shoes and your luggage completely unchecked. And of course, that all changed with 9/11. But again, before that time, it was totally normal. And if you're someone who already feels dissatisfied or cheated by life, like Martin, and you're watching the news, you're seeing person after person hijack a plane, demand money or safe passage, and at least temporarily get away with it. Soon, hijacking isn't just political, it's about ransom. Give me the money or I blow up the plane. And then one man raises the bar.
And this man will show up in November of 1971. A man using the name Dan Cooper buys a one-way ticket from Portland to Seattle. Mid-flight, he passes a note to a flight attendant that reads, "I have a bomb." He shows her a glimpse of red cylinders in a briefcase, demands $200,000 in parachutes, and forces the plane into this weird, bizarre negotiation. Money and parachutes are brought, passengers are released, and the plane takes off again. Somewhere over the Pacific Northwest, in the dark, the man lowers the rear stairs of the Boeing 727 and jumps. And he is never heard from, seen, or caught. The media misprints his name as D.B. Cooper, and suddenly this hijacker becomes a folklore-level anti-hero. People joke that they kind of hope he made it, that he didn't hurt anyone, and hey, kudos to him. He smoked his cigarette, sipped his bourbon, and then outsmarted the FBI. And so, if you are an impressionable young man like Martin McNally was when this whole D.B. Cooper phenomenon was happening, pairing it with the fact that maybe you're young, bored, and a little reckless, you're sitting in your car listening to this story on the radio in Detroit, and your brain is lighting up like a Christmas tree. And then he has a thought. I can do that. And that is just wild to me. I have never heard a hijacking story and said, by golly, I could do that too. But to each his own, I guess. For Martin, in his mind, he minimizes the risk, exaggerates his own competence, and sees this super incredibly complex and lucky escape as a step-by-step guide or blueprint on how to do it also. And then that blueprint in his brain starts to become an overwhelming obsession.
Martin grows up in Wyandotte, Michigan. This is a working class suburb outside of Detroit. He has a big Catholic family that he grows up in, and dad owns a shoe store. And the expectation in Martin's family is this: you grow up, you get a steady job, and you play by the rules. Martin, he's just not that kid, though. He drops out before finishing high school and enlists in the Navy. There, he works as an airplane electrician on sub-Hunter patrol planes. And those were the type of planes that would fly low over cold water looking for Soviet submarines during the Cold War. That's how he ended up in Kodiak, Alaska in the early 1960s. And this is where one of the core traumas of his story happens. Martin is in the barracks one night, lights on, regular noise, and then he hears something. It's this heavy, sickening thud in the distance. And he remembers thinking to himself, damn, sounds like a plane just crashed. He goes outside, and sure enough, there is a plane, or what's left of a plane, just the wreckage on fire, close enough to see. And he says that he remembers the smell first. It was burning fuel and a much worse smell behind it, which was burning flesh. He sees a serviceman's body with the skull crushed, one leg gone, and the plane burning down in the dark. And right then, in that moment, he says to himself, I will never fly again. And which I can't imagine how horrifying a sight like that would be. That moment stays with Martin for decades. Even in his 70s, he could still picture it. The smashed skull, the missing leg, the flames. And psychologically, that's an imprint. And that essentially is trauma, and it's wrapped itself around flight, around risk, around death, right? And fast forward 10 years, this same man, obviously fast forward from the original time that he sees it, right? This same man has sworn never to fly, is about to hijack a jet and jump out of the back of it at 300 plus miles an hour at night with a parachute he's never used before. I mean, that kind of contradiction tells you a lot. Avoidance and thrill-seeking living side by side. I don't know, like trauma mixed with bravado and a brain that really doesn't regulate fear in a typical way. I mean, really, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, neurons that wire together fire together. And so a lot of people will have an experience that will evoke fear and also excitement and adrenaline. Not excitement like, oh, I'm so excited to see this plane crash, but the excitement of the high chaos and pressure of the moment. And that can kind of sear itself in your brain. And then moving forward, your brain, once it has fear, it wants high adrenaline at the same time. And so that's just the thing, the neurons that fire together, wire together. And that maybe goes on for a long time for Martin, because that seems to kind of be the theme. And so after Martin gets out of the Navy, he doesn't want to become the respectable shoe store heir to his father's business. He tends to kind of bounce around through odd jobs and low-level schemes like skimming gas station sales or messing around with counterfeit coins and laundromats. Essentially, he's hustling, but never really making any money. By early 1972, all of that feels very small for him. And like we said, he's sitting in his car listening to the radio and hears about D.B. Cooper. And this was the moment that the scheming in his brain starts to happen, and he starts studying. He's going to the library to read about parachutes and skydiving and the physics of falling. And so he finds out that, number one, the Boeing 727 has a rear stairway that can be lowered in flight. Number two, at terminal velocity, it takes about 20 seconds to slow enough for a reserve chute to safely deploy. And there are these other kind of D.B. Cooper style hijackings that are popping up, and most of them are being caught, but not before they collect big money. And in Martin's brain, he says, I want in, but I want bigger. And one of the things that I was thinking as I was typing this part up, where he's like, I want that, I want it bigger and better, I said, it sounds like when I get into like my ADHD obsessive kick, when I want to take on this monster hobby and absolutely underestimating everything about it.
Yeah, you do kind of get that way. But I mean, I get that way too. I get it. But yeah, you're pretty bad at that.
Yeah, it's super bad, actually. And so like in Martin's case, when he's like, oh yeah, like I can hijack an airplane and I can make a ton of money, I think he's really underestimating a lot, the weather, the terrain that he would be flying over, FBI's response, physics in real world conditions. And he's also kind of arguably overestimating his ability to control the outcomes because he's read a few books and he's seen how other people do it. And if you can hear the entitlement in the plan, one big score and then everything will be fine. That's his mentality. But as we know, sometimes it always doesn't work out that way.
We are now at June 23rd, 1972, St. Louis, Missouri. Martin has recruited a friend, a pool hall hustler named Walter, for the early planning. Walter helps him get a .45 caliber rifle, which Martin saws down so it can fit inside this black, it's essentially a suitcase, right? Along with a shaggy brown wig, sunglasses, and smoke bombs. What an odd mix. Walter later gets cold feet. I mean, that sounds about accurate, about being directly involved, but agrees to act as a getaway driver in an exchange for a small cut. He drops Martin off at the airport that morning. Martin walks through the terminal like any other traveler, because remember, we are pre-TSA stuff. You just go in like you own the place. And because he doesn't have to show ID, he doesn't have to prove that he is who he is. So he has a fake name on his airplane ticket, which says Robert Wilson. He pays cash and boards American Airlines Flight 119 from St. Louis to Tulsa. He sits 3 rows from the back. Less than 30 minutes before they're supposed to land in Tulsa, Martin stands up and walks calmly to the lavatory. Regular guy in a shirt and slacks goes in. Mr. Hijacker comes out. Now he's wearing the brown wig and the sunglasses, holding the sawed-off rifle. He hands a note to the flight attendant, and the note basically says, "This is a hijacking. I have a weapon and a bomb. Do what I say." So what does she do? Of course, complies, and she goes into the cockpit. A few minutes later, the captain comes over the intercom with the gentlest hijack announcement ever and simply says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a passenger who needs to return St. Louis."
And just like that, American Airlines Flight 119 stops being a commuter flight and becomes a flying hostage situation. Okay? How terrifying that must be at the time, or at any time, but thinking of the stewardess on this flight. And so Martin starts to dictate his demands through the stewardesses. And this is just the list. The plane will return to St. Louis. He wants, very specifically, $502,500 in cash. $502,500. He wants multiple parachutes and harnesses. He wants flight goggles, a shovel, and detailed instructions on how to use the gear. And to top it off, he claims to have a bomb somewhere on the plane. And it's at this point where I just can't help but look into, like, if I was a fly on the wall at this time, trying to kind of analyze Martin and his brain and what's going on at that time, there's a lot going on. In his brain, he's playing out this fantasy script that he's built in his head, the D.B. Cooper script, if you will, step for step. There's the bomb, which is almost certainly fake, but using it as psychological leverage. And then he uses specific odd numbers like the $502,500, partially lifted from other hijacker stories because he thinks that it makes him look more serious. And then he's asking for extra $2,000 in small bills so he can tip the stewardess, right? Those are some of the reports of what happened. And I think some of that is to kind of take away from him not wanting to be perceived as like a dangerous guy, that this is more of a thrill. I just want my money and I'm going to be this like super cool adventurous guy, like a gentleman, but I'm not going to hurt anybody. I'm not a terrorist. I don't think it makes it less traumatic for the people involved on the plane, but maybe it just makes it easier for him to go through with it. I don't know. But regardless of that, on the ground, the FBI and local law enforcement really race into action. News outlets get a wind of this and just start swarming. Cameras just start flooding into the airport with news vans, and this is the hot new topic. Lambert Field slowly shuts down as other planes start circling or get diverted. Now, here is why the quote Golden Age of Hijacking really kind of starts to show its colors and get its name, because up until this point, or at this point in time, the playbook for hijacking is to cooperate, period. Do not escalate. Whatever you do, you have to keep the hijacker calm, and you need to keep people alive. So the FBI starts scrambling to find $500,000 in cash to meet its demands.
When you talked about him thinking of himself as a gentleman and not a thief, that instantly made me think of that movie, Kiss the Girls. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah, with Carrie Elwes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was giving, because he was very much like, remember, he had the girls and he was a gentleman, and they would all like play the violin, and he would, quote unquote, woo them, and they're all like, you're a psychopath, you're keeping us down here. So it's so interesting to me how people can have that duality in their mind, like justify what they're doing. Back to St. Louis. Flight 119 lands on a remote strip of the airfield. Negotiations stretch on for hours. Of course, the money isn't ready. Agents are coordinating with banks, counting cash. The jet is refueled. The FBI wants to stall without provoking him, right? Martin allows 80 of the 92 passengers to be released after the plane is parked and the chute is inflated. They slide down to safety, and he decides to keep a smaller group of male passengers, several crew members, and the stewardesses who act as his go-between. At one point, he demands someone come on board and show him how to wear the parachute harness correctly, which I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. Again, I guess in our age, we would just YouTube that before we decided to actually hijack a plane. But again, this is post or pre a lot of things. Pre-TSA, pre-YouTube.
Yeah, and I think that this goes back to the overestimating, underestimating thing I was talking about. Because this is the same thing I run into. Like, I'll be doing a project and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that that was a thing, or that didn't calculate into my calculations, or whatever the case is. And it's like, that's a really big part of this whole thing.
Well, not to go off on a tangent, but I made gumbo last night for the very first time. And of course, I'm like, how hard can it be? You just have to make sure the roux is good. I've never made roux, and it's, spoiler alert, it's like a 45-minute process. And I got like 20 minutes into this thing, and I was like, I don't know how it's even supposed to look, like consistency wise. But luckily for me, like I said, we have YouTube. So this dude, I think that really does do a great job of summing up that overestimating, underestimating that was going on dichotomy. So, anywho, he demands that someone come on board and show him how to wear the parachute harness correctly. And they say, okay. There's an FBI agent that boards the plane, gets close enough to demonstrate a parachute, how to properly attach it, all the things, all the levers, all the pulls. And of course, he is holding his rifle at him the whole time. And then the FBI agent backs off and goes off the plane. Like, can you imagine being this agent? Like, hey, hi, I'm Dan. I'm your skydiving instructor today, and here to help you jump into the darkness with stolen money. Please don't shoot me. So we're good, right? And again, it also shows you how improvisational all this still was. They're trying to prevent violence in the moment, even if it means ultimately educating the hijacker. Finally, late in the evening, the cash is ready. Cameras capture agents arriving with a heavy airmail bag and a smaller parcel filled with the rest of the money. Martin checks the goods, gets his parachutes, goggles, harnesses, and refuels the plane again. It's now after midnight. He releases most of the remaining hostages, keeping one male passenger, a stewardess, and the cockpit crew. He's ready for takeoff in what he believes will be his last plane before freedom. The airport is full of spectators pressed against the windows, watching the blinking lights of Flight 119 as it taxis out once more. And somewhere nearby in the airport Marriott lounge, so inside the airport in the Marriott lounge, a man named David Hanley is watching the exact same thing, but on TV.
Now, David Hanley is in his early 30s, and he's a businessman from the suburbs. He's drinking, watching this whole thing go down, getting worked up as he sees the hijacker essentially hold the whole city hostage. Witnesses later say he turns to someone at the bar and says something along the lines of, "Turn on the radio in a few minutes. You'll hear something that will shock the world." Then he leaves the lounge, gets into his Cadillac Eldorado, and starts driving. Back on the runway, Flight 119 is gearing up for takeoff. Engines are roaring, heavy with fuel, and a little bit heavier with the cash that McNally now has. So the plane starts rolling, and then the captain suddenly sees something in the dark and yells, "Oh my God, there is a vehicle on the runway." Hanley has blown through the security gate at something like 80 or 90 miles an hour, pointed his Cadillac straight at a jet full of people and fuel. Tires squeal, metal crunch, there's rumbling, and then nothing. The car slams into the nose and landing gear of the plane. Inside, the impact literally throws Martin forward in his seat. The plane shudders and grinds to a halt, and by some miracle, the fuel doesn't ignite. But there is a ruined Cadillac, a crippled 727, and a runway scattered with emergency vehicles. David Hanley is critically injured, broken bones everywhere, a broken skull, limb fractures, but he's alive. When he wakes up later, he claims not to remember anything that happened that night. And Hanley's act is reckless, grandiose, and almost suicidal. Martin's act is controlled, rehearsed, and criminally calculated. They collide, both literally, and both men's plans fall apart.
Martin doesn't care about Hanley's motives or injuries. He cares about one thing, and that's his escape vehicle is broken, which is problematic. He tells the cockpit, "Get me another plane." And unbelievably, airport officials, they do it. I mean, again, though, this is kind of everybody's first rodeo. I'm sure not very many of them know what to do with this plane hijacking. Even though there have been quite a few of them, it's still kind of a new era. They bring up a second Boeing 727 to move from one plane to the other. Martin forces the stewardesses to flank him, head covered with his briefcase, as he hurries across the tarmac, terrified of snipers. He boards through the rear stairs of plane number 2, still holding onto his hostage and remaining crew. The new plane refuels. The engines spool up. They take off again, this time pointed towards Toronto. It's the early hours of June 24th, 1972. The second 727 is high over the Midwest. Yes, they do take off. A car does not crash into this one, heading roughly towards the Canadian border. The cabin is a ghost town, obviously. Empty seats, abandoned food trays, trash in the aisle. I mean, they didn't even give them time to clean that plane. That is rude. All that's left behind the cockpit door is Martin and this bag of money. He walks to the rear wearing dark slacks and a blue polo-style shirt, looking like the most normal dude. The disguise clothes, the yellow pants, the dress shirt, the burgundy sport coat, the wig are lying around. He opens the rear hatch. The suitcase is lowered into the wind. Below is nothing. The kind of black sky where you can't tell if you're looking at clouds, land, or water. He doesn't know exactly where he is. He might be in Indiana. He might be over Lake Michigan. But he doesn't really know because he can't see anything through the night.
You know, I always wonder with the criminals that we cover, if there's ever a moment in their brain where they're like, I should stop this, or I could stop this. Like if they have those moments, or if they just never think twice about it. And in this moment, Martin would later recall saying that this is where he thought maybe I could stop. I could walk back to the cockpit, hand over the gun, give him the money back, and try to talk my way out of it. You know, maybe I could just tell him it was all a hoax, there was no real bomb, you know, no harm, no foul kind of thing. And this is where maybe a little bit internally where his bravado cracks. But just for a second. Now, I think this tiny flicker that he talks about. No, baby, go. I can't right now, honey. I love you. Now, this tiny flicker, you know, I think is important to some people, to a lot of people, and it shows that there is a part of him that recognizes just how wild, bizarre, crazy, and catastrophic this is. But that kind of goes in one lobe and out the other. And then he's back to his plan. He starts throwing things out. The wig, the fancy clothes, the smoke bombs, and the rifle. They're just ripped away by the wind, gone into the night. He straps on the reserve parachutes. Remember, he's never used one before. Tightens the straps around his legs and chest, pulls on the flight goggles, and checks the mailbag of cash tied to his belt loop to make sure it's secure. He scoots down the stairs on his butt until he's sitting at the end. Like literally sitting at the end of a plane in the sky about to jump out with something you've never done before. It's just wild to me. Then he turns, dangling by his hands from the bottom step, and lets go. From a surveillance plane above, an FBI agent sees a tiny dark shape fall away from the rear hatch and vanish. In the cockpit, the crew feel their ears pop as the cabin depressurizes, and they know that he is gone.
Now, Martin is in a free fall, not like the Tom Petty Free Falling song, which is quite lovely. He is in a turbulent, wild free fall and finds himself instantly in trouble. The wind slams his goggles so hard into his face that it rips it completely off. Not his face, it rips the goggles off his face. And so he is now without goggles. He's basically blind, right? Because he can't open his eyes with that much wind velocity. He throws his arms out in an attempt to stabilize himself and then starts counting in his head. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 20. And he got this from his physics reading, which told him in his time that he researched, give yourself enough time to slow to a survivable speed before pulling the ripcord, or the chute could shred. But he makes another crucial mistake. When he reaches for the ripcord with his right hand, he leaves his left arm stuck out. And at terminal velocity, it's kind of like sticking your arm out of the car going 300 miles per hour. The wind grabs it and whips him into this violent, almost like a tailspin. The parachute bursts out of his chest pack and blasts him in the face. Shroud lines everywhere. He's bouncing, twisting, half blind, and kind of half concussed at this point. Now, somehow, he manages to grab the lines above him and yank. The canopy finally catches air, and he's alive, and the chute is open. Okay. He reaches down to reassure himself the money is still attached, and it is not. This is getting worse. The mail bag has torn free from his belt. It's dangling below him, dropping faster, getting smaller with every second, until it disappears into the clouds, $500,000 gone. I feel like if this were a movie, that shot would be absolutely the slow motion, the bag tumbling end over end, shrinking, and then vanishing into white, right?
And Tom Cruise would be running.
Have you guys realized that Tom Cruise is in all of our movies? I don't know. I don't even...
That he runs in every movie he's ever been in.
He is, but we always talk about Tom. Like, I think we secretly love Tom Cruise. I think we're obsessed with Tom. Hashtag be on our podcast, Tom.
But not Scientology. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Because that's a cult. Okay, bye. Later, on the ground, it's a farmer. It's a farmer who finds the money. He thinks the lump in his field is an animal at first. Another farmer finds the gun churned up by the farm equipment, like thinking, of course, that it's a toy, but it is not. Between those two discoveries and fingerprints, the FBI gets their man, which, of course, is Martin J. McNally. When they catch him, he has $13, unlucky number $13 in his pocket. But before that, there's the landing.
So Martin is free falling and tumbling into the sky, rips his parachute. I'm surprised that it didn't rip his face off and his arms are still attached, because this is the wildest thing I've ever heard that's real. So when Martin finally lands, he lands really hard. He digs his heels in too early, the parachute jerks and just totally whips his body backwards, and his head smacks the ground. He starts seeing stars and his face is completely bruised and cut up. He is somehow able to pull himself up, stumbling, gathers up his parachute and drags it into a wooded area where he hides it under leaves and branches. Then he crawls inside it and sleeps. And he sleeps for several hours before he is woken up to the sound of helicopters overhead and dogs barking in the distance. I mean, you guys cannot make this stuff up. So he waits until dusk before he starts walking. He eventually climbs a fence and finds a 2-lane country road. Few cars pass by, and then one car finally stops. And the driver is none other than Richard Blair, the police. I'm so sorry, guys.
Like, this is terrible.
When you listen to the interview with Martin, because it's with Martin and the 2 Netflix producers, because this is a documentary that's coming on Netflix, they were like, this was the craziest story I ever heard, and that's why they ended up doing it. And so it's just like every step of this, it's not funny, but it's so wild, but you just I don't know what to do but laugh. Okay. So he climbs this fence, finds a 2-lane road, cars pass by, one stops. The driver is Richard Blair, the police chief of Peru, Indiana, driving back into town with his wife. So he pulls over because he sees this bruised, dazed man in the dark and pulls over to offer him help. So when he's like, do you need some help? Martin says, yes, thank you, gives a fake name. So he gives his brother's name and shows him a forged driver's license. And then tells him the story because the guy's like, what happened? And Martin says that he got beat up by his drunk brother on a nearby farm. And the police chief was like, yeah, I mean, that tracks, right? He offers him a ride into town where the police chief essentially drops him off at a hotel. He drives him to a motel across the town, and it's right across from the police station. This guy's like, I just jumped out of this I just hijacked this airlines, and this police chief's just like, hey, now he's at a motel across from a police station. And this is the other kind of like, this should be a Hollywood movie. When he gets to the motel, to check in, the clerk notices his injuries and jokes, literally saying, you aren't that Skyjacker, are you? And he's like, ha ha ha, laughs it off. And then for the first time of the night, for a very brief moment in time, Martin has believed that he has actually gotten away with it. Minus the money.
And here is a Christmas surprise for you. But we will find out next week if Martin gets away with it.
Bah, bah, bah.
Dun, 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 'cause I'm free falling.
Yeah, so we're not sure if we're gonna do release the episode part 1 on Wednesday, part 2 on Friday, and then the interview for you guys' little extra special dip next week.
Ooh.
Between now and next week, you guys will have what you need to have.
Yeah. I don't know. 'Tis the season, so we might just give you a surprise bag. You don't know. But there will be a part 2. You will get to know all the things. But as of right now, poor Martin, man, he is just skirting he is dodging all the bullets, man. Yes, he lost the money, but he's doing all right considering.
Yeah, and we're gonna see. We paused it here because this does not go into the normal. None of this goes with the normal trajectory that you think it's gonna go. There's always another plot twist with it, and we were like, man, we're creeping into an hour. You guys would be so overstimulated with data and information and wildness if we continued it. So we're gonna stop and we're gonna drop the rest of it. I don't know, we'll see when we see it, kind of thing.
Yeah, so have fun.
Fun.
Don't go hijacking.
Yeah. As always, you guys, thanks for hanging out with us through this crazy and wild ride.
And we'll catch you on the wild side.
Bye, guys.
Later, Gators. Hey, Wildside Tribe. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Wildside Podcast.
Make sure to tune in on Wildside Wednesdays. New episodes will drop each Wednesday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
We would love to hear from you, so if you have a wild case recommendation, email us at wildsidepodcast@gmail.com. That's wildside with a C. Or share your thoughts in the comments below.
As always, if you haven't heard it today, you're loved, you're worthy, and you're valuable. And we'll catch you on
The flip side.